So for those of you who come to the daily sit fairly regularly, you know that every number of months I orient my sharing towards nature because nature is such a teacher for me. And so that's what I'm going to do today. Wisdom is our topic for the week, and nature is a great wisdom teacher. I think of nature really as one of my benefactors in this practice because it models wisdom and it shows me by example how to live in a way that can decrease my own suffering. Jay spoke about how wisdom's not about our intellect. It's not an accumulation of knowledge, as important and helpful as that can be at times. Wisdom it's a deeper knowing, an embodied knowing in our hearts and bodies. And nature embodies wisdom as well, everywhere. And if we attune to it, it helps bring us into our bodies and hearts. So many of the Buddhist teachings are manifested in the natural world. My nature teacher, Mark Coleman, speaks of nature as Dharma and Dharma as nature, where he's touching on how encompassing and intimate the relationship is. Impermanence, egolessness, interconnectedness. And it's an interconnectedness that includes us. We're made of the same essential elements as nature, and we aren't separate from the world around us. And relative to our current focus, the Paramis, nature displays each one of them. I can feel generosity each day from the sun and see equanimity in the trees swaying in the wind, patience of a mountain, energy of a raging river, virtue in the social structure of a bee colony, resolve of an ant, metta of a mother bird, renunciation of the winter, truth of death. They're all here. If we slow down a bit and turn our attention to the world around us, we have access to these teachings. And, I'm always a bit surprised at how adept nature is at offering what I need in a particular moment in time. And now is a really good example. So here we are in late November. And in Vermont, this season is called stick season, which if you live here, you'd know that the name was very appropriate. So I just want to set the mood. It may be similar where you are, and if not, just try to sink in a bit to this description. The landscape has lost its color. Our gardens have died back. The brilliant foliage of a month ago is gone. Trees have lost most of their leaves, and what is left are the bare branches. The birds have left too. The cicadas have died, and it's much quieter except for the wind. The fish in our pond have moved deep into the colder water. The turtles have tunneled into the mud. The air is damp and cold and raw. And we've even had our first snow. The days are getting shorter. And we can begin to feel the darkness falling at about 4 o'clock. And that's the beginning of long nights. The changes are so obvious, but they still surprise me. Somehow each year they sneak up on me. You know, nature's slowing down after the productivity and bounty of spring and summer and fall. Nature's resting as winter arrives. And the message all around is to slow down, to go inside, and to rest. And it's the message I really need to hear right now. For so many years, I ignored the messages. I even fought against them. And everything in our culture encourages us to do that, to just keep on going, filling our calendars, our jobs, our social lives, our to-do lists, the holidays. They just keep happening. More keeps coming. I remember the days when I would leave from my work commute in the dark. I would work all day, and I was in an office with one window that looked out on an air shaft. So there really was no natural light. And then I'd come home in the dark. And then in the evening and on the weekends, I had dinners out and errands to run and phone calls to make. And I was living my life oblivious to the change in seasons. And if I step back a little bit, truthfully, I was living my life fueled by desire to do everything that was afforded to me. My life was filled with so many good things. And at one level, it was wonderful. And at another, it just became an accumulation of experience. And in the process, I became tired, uninspired, and kind of drained. The Sutta Nipata says, lose the greed for pleasure. See how letting go of the world is peacefulness. Can you see how nature is showing us the way? Nature too goes wild with activity and productivity, but then it lets go and rests. Everything in nature rests, slows, hibernates. And no matter where you live or what part of nature you observe, you'll see this. It's a cycle. So here in November, nature's message is to let go, to slow down. Perhaps then we can see more clearly into our lives and see the way things really are, underneath all of the wanting that distracts us. I can feel it. I can feel how impending winter is speaking to me to simplify. And you might take a moment and just notice if you can feel that sense of winter inside. Last week, Catherine spoke about renunciation and how it's not about forced deprivation. And it's not about this willpower to say no to things or a pulling away. Instead, it's forward moving. It's a movement towards less suffering, more happiness, and more peace. And I really feel like nature is showing us how renunciation is about saying yes to rest and simplifying, and what comes of that. John O'Donohue says, the world rests in the night. Trees, mountains, fields, and faces are released from the prison of shape and the burden of exposure. Each thing creeps back into its own nature within the shelter of the dark. Darkness is the ancient womb. The darkness absolves everything. The struggle for identity and impression fall away. We rest in the night. This is a bit of a different interpretation of darkness than Jay spoke to on Monday. She spoke of wisdom as bringing us out of the darkness, and that's true. But here in these lines, perhaps darkness is offering us something that can bring us closer to wisdom by releasing us from the prison of shape and letting the struggle for identity fall away. And maybe it's a little scary, like the dark can be sometimes scary. We keep ourselves so busy. We fill up our lives with so many experiences that it is maybe a little scary to rest and not know what comes next. Space and stillness can be a bit unsettling at first. And here's where the wisdom of nature can support and reassure us. After the leaves have fallen, after the greenery has died back, we can see more deeply into the woods. We can see more of the sky above us. There's more silence, less movement. A sense of spaciousness pervades the landscape. And if we notice, if we can see and feel, there's not nothing in that space. There is life. It's just quieter. It's peaceful. I kind of feel like it as a little more contented. And we all have lived through enough of these winters to know that as it gets coldest, the light starts to increase. And then the sap begins to run. And then the mud appears, and eventually buds begin to form. There is life there. So think about it in our own lives. I think that at some level, we long to let go of the sweeping energies of our culture that tell us to do more and accumulate more. And if we attune to our natural energies, if we let go a bit into more silence and space, our lives find more of their natural rhythm. Perhaps they're a little more grounded and peaceful, and they seem to unfold with just a little more ease. It's the wisdom of renunciation and the wisdom that arises because of renunciation, because of the space that's created by renunciation. So here it is, nature's wisdom made apparent at this time of year. And whether you live in New England or elsewhere, I encourage you to notice when nature rests. It might not be in winter if you don't have winter. It might be during a rainy season. It might be a very, very hot and arid time in desert climates. And even if nature is not as accessible to you, consider a plant in your home. When does it find rest? After it blossoms, it might go dormant for a while. It's there if you turn your attention towards it, and it can support you in your practice. So I just am going to end with a poem called The Winter Cloak by Joyce Roop, where I think she said much more succinctly than I've said in this whole talk, much of what I'm trying to convey. She says, "This year, I do not want the dark to leave me. I need its wrap of silence, stillness, its cloak of long-lasting embrace. Too much light has pulled me away from the chamber of gestation. Let the dawns come late. Let the sunsets arrive early. Let the evenings extend themselves while I lean into the abyss of my being. Let me lie in the cave of my soul, for too much light blinds me, steals the source of revelation. Let me seek solace in the empty places of winter's passage, those vast dark nights that never fail to shelter me. So thank you all. And let's transition into our time of practice, beginning with bringing attention to our bodies, letting our attention sink into all the nooks and crannies of our body. Just noticing what is needed today, right now. Knowing that even this movement, this is creating spaciousness. It's creating that environment that will allow us to settle into stillness. And let us let go of our thoughts just for these number of moments and see what's lying deeper in there. So as that feels complete, letting yourself settle into whatever posture you're embodying right now for your practice. Feeling the earth holding you, steadying you, dependable. And perhaps a couple deeper than normal breaths. Noticing particularly the out breath and the letting go of the out breath. Someone just said to me last night that you can actually feel renunciation in every out breath. And as your body continues to settle, let your mind also slow a bit, settle a bit. And if it's helpful, maybe an image of snow gently falling and how the snow settles on the ground. Or a gentle rain. Keep it simple. Just this breath, this body sensation, this sound. No need for judgments, expectations. Just simply watching the arising and passing. What is the feel of your inner landscape right now? Is there constriction that you can let go of? Or if not let go of, find space around? Or is it spacious and allowing? Thank you all for being here, for your practice.